I think we've all had those nights where our body feels tired, but our mind just won't stop. You lie there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations, making to-do lists, maybe even worrying about why you're not asleep yet. It's a frustrating loop, and the harder you try to shut it off, the louder it seems to get. I know because I've been there, more times than I can count. And for a long time I thought the problem was just, I'm a bad sleeper. But what I eventually realized is that most of those sleepless nights were actually stress nights. My mind was carrying the weight of the day, and no matter how comfortable my bed was, no matter how dark or quiet my room, my brain was still in work mode, problem-solving mode, overthinking mode. And here's the thing, your body can't fall into deep restorative sleep if your mind still thinks it's in the middle of a battle. That's why tonight I want to talk about the connection between stress and sleep, and more importantly, how you can calm your mind before bed in natural, practical ways that actually work. This isn't about pretending stress doesn't exist, or forcing yourself to be zen with a snap of your fingers. It's about building a small set of signals, things you can do in the hour before bed, that tell your nervous system it's safe to let go. Some of these ideas come from different cultures and traditions around the world. Others are backed by modern science. But they all have one thing in common. They help you make that shift from a busy mind to a resting one. And I can tell you from my own life, that shift changes everything. Because when you go to bed with a calm mind, sleep stops being something you fight for. It becomes something that finds you. One of the first things I learned about calming the mind before bed is that you can't just flip a switch. If you've been running at full speed all day, answering emails, making decisions, dealing with people, and then you try to lie down and expect your brain to instantly go quiet, it's like slamming on the brakes while driving 70 miles an hour. You're going to skid. You need a runway, a gentle slowdown, and one of the most effective ways to start that is with something physical that also feels grounding. For me, that started with a simple evening walk. Not a power walk, not exercise in the traditional sense, just 15 or 20 minutes of moving my body at a relaxed pace, usually after dinner. At first I thought it was just about stretching my legs, but I realized the movement was actually processing the stress I'd been carrying. Every step seemed to shake loose a little bit of tension. I'd notice my breathing getting deeper, my shoulders lowering without me telling them to, and by the time I got home, I felt lighter in a way that made the rest of the evening flow better. That's the thing about natural stress relief. It doesn't always look dramatic, but it changes the tone of your whole night. And if walking isn't your thing, there are other ways to get that same effect. Some people do gentle yoga or stretching. Some do light house chores with music they love. Some even just sit on the porch with a cup of tea and watch the light fade. The point isn't the exact activity. It's choosing something that tells your body the work part of the day is over. And here's what's important. You don't wait until you're in bed to start calming down. You start in that last hour before bed. So by the time your head hits the pillow, your nervous system is already halfway to sleep. Another thing I started doing, and I didn't realize how much it would help until I made it a habit, was what I call the mental dump. Basically, it's just writing down everything swirling in my head before I try to sleep. At first, I felt silly, like, is this really going to make a difference? But I remember one night when I couldn't stop thinking about my schedule for the next day, all the calls I had to make, the errands I couldn't forget, and the problems I still hadn't solved. So I grabbed a notebook and wrote it all out. No editing, no organizing, just every single thing that was taking up mental space. 5 minutes later, I felt this strange relief, like my brain had permission to stop carrying it all because now it was somewhere safe. That's the thing. Your mind isn't built to store everything perfectly. It's built to solve problems. So if you don't give it an outlet, it will keep looping through those thoughts at night. Writing them down tricks your brain into thinking, okay, we've got this. I don't need to keep reminding you. Some people call it a brain dump, some call it journaling, but whatever you call it, it works. And you can combine it with gratitude if you want to end on a lighter note. Just jot down a couple of things you appreciated that day. I've found that ending with gratitude softens my mind even more. Like it gently shifts the focus from what's wrong to what's okay. Another method I swear by for stress relief before bed is breathing. Specifically, the 4-7-8 technique. I'd read about it for years, but didn't take it seriously until one night I was feeling wired and restless and thought, why not? You breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 7, and breathe out for 8. The first couple of rounds feel like nothing's happening, but by the 4th or 5th, your heart rate slows, your shoulders drop, and it's like someone turned down the volume in your head. It's not magic, it's physiology. You're literally telling your body to switch from fight or flight mode into rest and digest mode. And the best part is, you can do it anywhere. Sitting in bed, lying down, even in a dark living room with no distractions. And then, there's the power of sound, which I think a lot of people overlook. For me, certain sounds act like a shortcut to relaxation. It might be rain on a tin roof, ocean waves rolling in and out, or even the low hum of a fan. These sounds work because they give your brain something steady and predictable to latch onto, which makes it harder for stressful thoughts to take over. I learned this from a friend who lives in the city and used to struggle with the constant noise, sirens, car horns, people shouting on the street. She started using a simple white noise app at night, set to soft rain, and she said it felt like she'd built a little bubble around her bed, where the chaos couldn't get in. I tried it myself with ocean sounds and found the same thing. My mind didn't wander as much because it was following the rhythm of the waves. Another surprisingly powerful stress reliever before bed is scent. I know we've talked about lavender in other videos, but honestly, it's a classic for a reason. When I diffuse lavender oil about 30 minutes before sleep, my whole bedroom feels softer, like it's giving me permission to exhale. But you don't have to stick to lavender. Vanilla, chamomile, and sandalwood can be just as calming, and sometimes even more personal because they trigger good memories. I had a listener tell me that sandalwood reminds her of her childhood home, and just a few drops on her pillow make her feel safe enough to drift off easily. And I can't leave out one of my favorite ways to ease stress before bed: gentle stretching in dim light. I'm not talking about a full workout, just slow movements that open up the hips, shoulders, and back, because those are the places where we store the most tension from stress. I like to do it barefoot on a soft rug with the lights low and maybe a candle lit, and I swear by the way my body almost sighs with relief when I'm done. The key with all of this is not to force yourself into some perfect routine right away. Pick 1 or 2 things that you actually enjoy and let them be your wind-down signals. Over time, your body will start to connect those activities with the idea of rest, and that's when you'll notice the difference. Not just in how quickly you fall asleep, but in how deeply you sleep once you get there. I remember talking to a guy named Daniel who used to lie awake until 2 or 3 in the morning almost every night. He was convinced he just wasn't a sleep person, whatever that means. But when we started digging into his evenings, it was obvious. He was finishing work at 9, eating late, watching intense TV shows until midnight, and then wondering why his mind wouldn't settle down. I suggested he try something ridiculously simple. A 10-minute walk outside after dinner, no phone, just fresh air. And then 20 minutes before bed, write down every single thing on his mind, no matter how small. He thought it sounded pointless. But after 2 weeks, he told me he'd had his first week of sleeping through the night in years. Then there was Claire, a single mom with 2 kids, who said evenings used to be the most stressful time of her day. Getting the kids ready for bed, cleaning up the house, making lunches for the next day. By the time she climbed into bed, her mind was still buzzing. She decided to start with breathing, just 5 rounds of 4-7-8 after turning out the lights. The first night she didn't notice much, but by the 4th night, she said she could feel her whole body melting into the mattress before she even finished the last exhale. I met Jamal at a community workshop on sleep, and he told me his trick was sound. He'd grown up near the ocean, but after moving to the city, he missed that steady background noise. So he bought a cheap speaker and played ocean waves quietly in his room at night. He said the first time he tried it, he felt like he'd been transported back to his childhood bedroom, and that sense of familiarity helped him drift off faster than he had in months. And then there's Olivia, who swore she couldn't sleep without scrolling on her phone to wind down, which we both know doesn't actually work. She challenged herself to replace the phone with a diffuser and lavender oil for 1 week. By the end of the week, she was laughing about how she'd been missing out on this sense of calm for so long. She told me, "I don't even miss the phone now. I look forward to the smell because it means the day's officially done." Another person who stands out in my mind is Miguel, a chef who works in a high-pressure kitchen until late at night. When he finally gets home, he's physically tired, but mentally still in that adrenaline rush from service. For years, he just accepted the fact that it would take him hours to come down enough to sleep. Then one night, after a particularly hectic shift, he tried something he'd heard from a coworker. Take a quick, warm shower with the bathroom lights dimmed, towel off slowly, then sit on the edge of the bed with the lights low and do 3 rounds of deep breathing. Miguel said he felt a little silly at first, but by the end of the week, he noticed he was falling asleep in under 20 minutes instead of 2 hours. Then there's Hannah, a college student balancing classes, a part-time job, and the constant social pull of campus life. She told me she often stayed up late because she felt like she needed me time after everything else. But the problem was her version of me time was watching endless videos on her phone. She decided to swap that habit for a scented candle and gentle stretching for just 10 minutes. She laughed when she told me she actually started looking forward to that quiet space more than the videos because it left her feeling rested instead of wired. I also met Robert, a retired firefighter, who said the hardest part of retirement was that without the constant activity of his job, his mind wandered at night, sometimes back to stressful memories. His daughter bought him a small indoor fountain for his bedroom, and the steady sound of water became his nighttime companion. He said it made him feel calm in a way he hadn't felt in years. And then there was Emily, a marketing manager in a fast-paced company who swore she'd tried every app and gadget for sleep with no luck. She finally tried journaling before bed. Not a gratitude journal, not a fancy template, just a cheap notebook where she wrote everything she needed to get out of her head. She said the first night she slept like a rock. And now she carries that notebook even when she travels. One of my favorite stories came from Sarah, a nurse who works long shifts at the hospital. She used to get home completely drained, but also wired from the constant pace and emotional weight of her job. She'd collapse on the couch and scroll on her phone for an hour, telling herself she was unwinding. But then she'd go to bed and her mind would still be racing through patient charts and conversations. One night, on a whim, she decided to try turning off all the lights except for one small lamp, made herself a cup of chamomile tea, and sat quietly without any screens until the tea was gone. She told me that when she got into bed that night, she was asleep before she even remembered to check the clock. Now it's her nightly ritual, and she says it's made the difference between dragging herself through her days and actually having energy again. Another one is Ben, a freelance graphic designer who used to joke that he lived on caffeine and deadlines. The problem was, his work often bled into the late evening, and by the time he shut his laptop, his brain was still in design mode. A friend suggested he create a closing shift for himself, just like a cafe or store would. 15 minutes where he closed all his programs, put his phone on airplane mode, and did one calming thing, like listening to soft music or lighting incense. Ben swore that within a week, his sleep improved so much that he stopped hitting snooze in the morning. And then there's Grace, a mother of 3, who thought she didn't have time for any kind of self-care before bed. But she started involving her kids in a short breathing exercise right before their bedtime. And she said it not only helped them fall asleep faster, but it also calmed her own mind so much that when she finally went to bed herself, she drifted off without the usual tossing and turning. All of these stories prove the same point. Stress doesn't just fade on its own. You have to give it an exit route. Whether it's writing, breathing, stretching, scent, or sound, the method matters less than the intention behind it. You're not just doing an activity, you're sending your body and mind a clear message. The day is over, and it's safe to rest now. So here's the thing I want you to take away from all of this. You don't have to fix your whole sleep routine in one night, and you don't have to try every single stress relief method we've talked about. All you need is one small, intentional step tonight. Maybe it's closing your laptop 30 minutes earlier. Maybe it's writing down everything that's been swirling in your head. Maybe it's brewing a cup of tea or dimming the lights and just breathing. What matters is that you pick something and you give yourself permission to let it be the bridge from your busy day into your night of rest. I know it's tempting to think, I'll start when things calm down, but life rarely hands us a perfectly calm day. You have to create that pause for yourself, even if it's just 5 minutes. And here's the beautiful thing. Your body remembers. The first few nights you might still feel restless, but if you keep sending it the same gentle signal every evening, it will start to respond faster and deeper. One night, you'll wake up and realize you slept through without the constant battle, and you'll know it's because you built a habit that works for you, not against you. So try it tonight. Don't overthink it. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Just start. Let tonight be the first night you give your mind a chance to feel safe enough to rest. Because when your mind is calm, your sleep isn't just longer, it's better. And when your sleep is better, everything else in your life feels lighter. And that's a change you deserve.